Thank you. Hello. I'm going to start just with a simple but very serious question that you're going to answer hopefully by raising your hands or sitting on your hands. And I just want to ask how many people love Cincinnati enough to call it home? That's great. That's a lot of people. See how quickly they went down? Not because you don't love Cincinnati enough to call it home, but because it's not permanent. So we're going to talk a little bit, not that your love isn't permanent, your hand raising isn't permanent. That would hurt, right? At some point, everybody gets stiff and you have to put your hand down. So I'm going to talk about the Lexington Tattoo Project, which is a project that I started along with Kremena Todorova, who normally is not turned away from you. She's standing next to me, but today this is how she's represented, with an idea to try to make artwork from the material of that pride that caused you to raise your hand. So in Lexington, probably about 5 years ago, we started to notice that more and more people were proud to be from Lexington. When I first moved to Lexington, it was a little bit hard to find someone who was proud to be from Lexington, in part because a lot of people were moving there. But also there was just a growing sense of pride, and we wanted to find a way to make an artwork with that as a material. And so this is Kremena, and this is all done with tattoos. This is her tattoo. She's actually from Bulgaria. Neither of us are from Lexington, but we're both live in Lexington and are proud to call it home now. So the way we chose to do this was by commissioning a local poet named Bianca Spriggs to write a love letter to the city as a poem. And then we were planning to divide that poem up into tattoos and raise enough money to pay for all the tattoos, so people who were committed to living in Lexington and proud enough about it to wear this mark on themselves forever wouldn't have to pay for their tattoos. Nobody would say they want to participate, but they couldn't afford to. The way she started this was by posting on Facebook. So she made it kind of somewhat crowdsourced in ways we were unanticipating. She said, "Help me fill in the blank. Lexington is the blank of the universe." And you'll see that becomes an important part of the poem. So this is the title of the poem, and it's on a man and woman, who are now husband and wife, though at the time they had been dating. The Blank of the Universe, a love story. Bianca's poems prior to this, all of her published poems were about 100 words. And so we created the budget for the tattoo project knowing that we would have to pay for 100 tattoos and hoping that we could find 100 people in Lexington that would be willing to do this, and really kind of doubting we would be able to. We didn't tell her she had to write a 100-word poem, and so instead, she wrote a 496-word poem. So we thought we had raised all the money we needed, and everybody in Lexington who had signed up for the project by this point knew that we were getting the poem on Thanksgiving Day, and we were going to divide it and turn it around to them 2 days later, and suddenly we had to maybe raise 5 times as much money. That turned out to be less of a problem than it seemed to be immediately when we found the poem. But if you look at the poem, you'll start to see kind of words that are place-based. So there's Triangle Park, Kentucky Theater, Tally Ho, which is a restaurant that's open all night. Everybody loves the restaurants that's open all night. But also on the right side are what people had sent in. So Lexington is the blank of the universe. Some of those are great, like the middle name of the universe. Everybody's got a middle name. Most people have middle names. So that's an easy sell. Some of these other ones were a little bit trickier. But what we knew we wanted to do was to design tattoos that would be recognizable. So that if you run into somebody in a coffee shop and they have a text tattoo, there are a couple different ways you know that they're part of this project. And one of the ways is the font itself. The font is Dante. We looked through a lot of different fonts to try to find ones that would tattoo well. And it really troubled us that Times New Roman seemed to be the one that was the most likely. But there are some really bad letters in Times New Roman. And if you're looking at every single letter, you need to kind of address that. So this is Dante. So one way that everyone knows a tattoo is part of the Lexington Tattoo Project is that the font is Dante, but secondly, they're all surrounded by circles. In the end, everybody is wearing a part of the poem and also part of a secret image which is created by these circles. But before we got there, we realized that everybody had to choose these words, and we needed to get somebody to choose every word, assuming that there would be some words that would be really hard. So from the very beginning, we said to the first person we told about this project, surely she's going to write a poem with the word the, and who is going to want the word the? And the man we told said, you know what, I would take that, and here's all the money in my pocket to get you started fundraising. Now, his pockets were not that deep that day. I think we got $17 from him. But that was the beginning, and he didn't end up taking the word the, but other people chose it. There were several difficult phrases, like the armpit, and the hangover, which seemed like absolutely the wrong tattoo. Nobody wants a tattoo that says the hangover because everyone assumes that's when you get them anyways, right? This woman is actually a tattoo artist whose mother helped her decide the location of her tattoo. And the really incredible thing in Lexington, and the same thing happened here in Cincinnati, is that no matter how unusual the phrase seems to be, it's somebody's first, second, or third choice. So in Lexington, there are 253 phrases, and all of them were someone's first, second, or third choice. So I say that, but obviously there's a process to make that happen. Like when the Enchanted Forest gets chosen 7,000 times because everyone wanted that was our most popular phrase, we just suddenly take that off the list. So they stop putting that as their first choice. But every word is chosen, which is really fantastic. And then people internalize it and make that word their own. Some people choose to participate in additional to affirming their connection to the city of Lexington, affirming connections to other people who are part of the project. So this is Kristen and George. And we know everybody's names now. I say we, and remember the back that you saw before. Normally we is Kremen and I. It's not just me hiding behind a pretend other person. So we know everybody now, but prior to this we didn't know everyone. And Kristen and George showed up for their picture together, and we photographed them together because that seemed more interesting to us. And then we didn't know, suddenly when this particular picture was on CNN, we realized that they told us when they were getting their pictures taken that his mother didn't know they were dating. We were concerned for a minute that maybe she found out through CNN, but they found out before. So this is they share a single phrase, the knock knock joke of the universe. These are two brothers, Enrique and Wayne. Both have of the universe, which if you remember shows up in the poem 28 times. So there's several different versions of that tattoo. And Enrique's tattoo, Angel, is actually his mother's name. His mother also has a tattoo as part of the project. Unlike her sons, she chooses to be shy about cameras. And this is an interesting one. This is a mother and daughter who chose to split a phrase on their feet. So you could probably see the feet are not only a different size, but one looks slightly younger than the other. But all of them come together. All those circles and dots come together to make a single image. And we didn't reveal that image until the final day when we shared the video. And the image, if you are familiar with Lexington, this is the ring road around Lexington is called New Circle Road. If you've lived there for, say, 30 years, then you think of it as Circle 4 Road, but because it's the number 4. So we tried to come up with something in Lexington. What is an image that is not basketball, bourbon, or horses that is connected to everybody? And New Circle Road is kind of the way people define where they live. You live inside or outside of the circle, and that also determines how you live, whether you're afraid of parking downtown, you live outside of the circle, and if you're afraid of falling off the planet, you live inside of the circle. But it's a way that, it's one image that kind of brought everybody together. And one man, this man, Hendrik Floyd, volunteered to get the full secret image as a tattoo. So we knew for about 4 months that he had it, and we were telling people that someone out there has the secret image. So then it became a big guessing game, not only what is the image, and of course right now it would make perfect sense to you. A lot of people were hoping it was Coach Cal. It wasn't Coach Cal, but who had the image. So the project was surprising to us in so many ways. I said in the beginning that we were hoping to get 100 people to sign up, and we got 253 people with tattoos and at least as many people on a waiting list. And then as we kind of were completing the project, other places started contacting us. Our first city that we did this in outside of Lexington is Boulder. And the idea here is ultimately very simple. The font is exactly the same. The pattern with which we make the images is the same, but the little marks are different. So in Boulder, it's stars. If you happen to run into somebody in an airport and they have this same font and it's surrounded by a few stars, then you know they're from Boulder. And they're friendly. That's the other thing. That's kind of the other, there are two requirements. You have to be comfortable saying you're proud to call this city home and that you're friendly. So this is a kind of a collection of people from Boulder. This poem was written by a famous poet named Anne Waldman. She's a beat poet. She's published many collections of poetry. And she wrote about, many phrases have water, but she wrote the poem about 6 months in advance of those last large floods in Boulder. So then, as any beat poet, any good beat poet would, she then said, I predicted these floods. And it made it very powerful to the participants and it became part of a healing process with the city. Like the Lexington Tattoo Project and also like the Cincinnati Tattoo Project, everything is hyper-local. So the tattoo artists are local, photographers are local, musician that plays the music is local, the poet is local. The only thing that is non-local in these situations is Cremena and I coming to town to kind of get things set up, but also making the final video. So now on to Cincinnati. Cincinnati, and through Artworks is presenting this project, and they did, every time we talk to Artworks, they do the same thing, which the project is 10 times bigger than it was last time we talked to them, and it's incredible. So with the idea that Bianca did some crowdsourcing for the poem where she posted on Facebook, Artworks blew that up and said, you know, we're just going to ask everyone in Cincinnati to send us postcards about what they love and why they love Cincinnati or why it's home. Did anybody in here send a postcard in? We got a few. And hopefully some of your words will turn into a tattoo. So once, I think Artworks got about 1,000 postcards from all over the city, why people love Cincinnati. And then somehow magically, the poets of Chase Public took all of those words and put them in their poetry blender and created an incredible poem, kind of an 8-stanza poem for the city of Cincinnati. And these images are snagged from Facebook and Instagram. Cincinnati has about 20 or maybe 30 tattoos that are done that I know of. Some people don't post them instantly on Instagram, which it's because they're trying to hide them from me, I'm certain. But if you pay attention, you'll start to see them pop up. You'll see them pop up on social media, you'll see them in real life, and the signs in Cincinnati are triangles and carrots. Not carrots like you eat. Carrots like typeface. But then what happens, so we did this in Lexington, we had just started in Boulder, and someone approached us and talked to us about how can you scale this up to fit the whole world. And that is something that seemed like a challenge at the time, and we did exactly what we do. Every time someone presents us with a ridiculous challenge, we said, absolutely, we can do that, and we have an idea already. It was a lie. It took us several months to figure out how to do it, but one of the big issues with the city-based tattoo projects is though they're pride of place, all the tattoos are paid for, but you can't pay for 10,000 tattoos. You pay for a certain amount, which means some people get in and some people don't get in. So for Love Letter to the World, which is the global version of the project, the idea is that everybody can get in. The difference is that we don't pay for the tattoos. We know of tattoos in over 11 countries already. Some people, like this man and woman, are still doing the same thing as the local projects, where they're using the tattoos to affirm kind of existing relationships. With the sun and the moon is part of a single phrase in that poem. And one thing that is different with the Love Letter to the World project is because it's not locally sourced and locally specific, we knew from the very beginning that people will change their tattoos, and they did, and that's been fun to watch. So all the additions of color are what people do individually, and it also allows tattoo artists around the world to kind of make their own mark on it, which is great. And the other change, which has been challenging and really exciting is that we can't photograph all of them. We really like to know what the photographs are going to look like, so they're going to be great. But obviously, we learned quickly when people are uploading their tattoo pictures on Facebook for Lexington and Boulder and now Cincinnati.
Is it all in English?
No, I'll get there. It's translated. Is that people upload their own pictures and they're fantastic. So this is a photograph uploaded by a woman named Gohde Bernardo, who is from the Maori tribe in New Zealand. And this is from a man in Japan. So the poem has been translated and it's on the website in 11 different languages, but we invite people to send us their own translation. So we will translate the design into any language. And we know, like I said, we know of 11 different countries that have them, and we know of those primarily by the languages. So like Lexington Tattoo Project and Boulder and Love Letter to the World, Cincinnati Tattoo Project will come together in a final video. And I want to show you what that's going to look like, because what you know so far is that there's a poem written as a love letter to Cincinnati by words that Chase Public kind of created, that everyone submitted, and tattoos. But in the end, it becomes a video, and that brings all of it together in a single place. So I'm going to show a video that has footage from the Lexington Tattoo Project and some kind of preview of Love Letter to the World. Because Cincinnati Tattoo Project only has, like I said, 20 tattoos that I know of so far, you won't see them in there. But just imagine all the shapes being replaced with triangles and the poems making more sense to Cincinnati, and this is what it looks like.
It was beyond midnight when she showed up at his back door and asked him to take her on a ride through back roads out past Elkhorn Creek. It would be just like the night she wore a neon wig and her favorite leopard print heels, but lost one at the Dame, which tended to smell like a careless night out with friends. She blushed at his suggestion that instead they throw a dance party for two as bottom shelf as the cheap seats on the opening day of Keeneland. He told her that the first time seeing her under the golden ginkgo tunnel on Catalpa Street felt like finding the perfect peach in the farmer's market before brunch on a Sunday after Rocky Horror the night before at the Kentucky Theater.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kurt. We actually have at least one, if not two, tattoo recipients in the audience somewhere. If you're here and you want to come up, we'd love to kind of get a little bit of background information about why you wanted to be part of the project. Anyone? Anyone?
Let's do it, Cory.
There you go. Right? Thank you.
From Fargo, North Dakota, so I'm a new resident of Cincinnati. And the reason I wanted to be part of this project was because I instantly felt welcome to the city through my job, through the neighborhood. I live in OTR, and it just felt like the right thing to do. I have multiple tattoos, so I'm not a first timer, but it just felt right. And my phrase is like a cobra.
My name is Cory Wolf. I'm the Director of Public Art at Artworks, and I've been working with Kurt and Cremetta on this Cincy Ink project, so it was pretty hard not to get a tattoo after working on this for so long with them. They've been amazing, and I've only been in Cincinnati for less than a year, and I got the phrase truth, which is down here. You can't see it. I shouldn't have worn tights today, but I got it from my mom. So she always told me our Martin Luther King phrase. It's now I'm going to forget it. Unarmed truth and unconditional love will have the final word in reality. And so that word truth was part of that poem for me, and also a part of the Cincinnati Tattoo Project poem, which is amazing. So, yeah, thanks.
Okay, so I'm Tommy, and I'm also a recipient here. So I took part of it because I wanted to be part of the community also, because I was born and raised here. And my phrase is the cut in the hill. And my story behind it is that I was basically doing some cutting the hills at Perfect North Slopes. And it was inclement weather, but so I accidentally took a wrong cut and ran into a tree. So I was in the intensive care for that and was out for like 2 months. But then I went through so much with the physicians. UC helped me get back to where I was now. So it was a miracle to me that I'm here and functioning again. So I wanted to repay my love to the city, and that's why I took part into this project also. So thanks.
I'd like to open up to Q&A for anyone involved and questions for the recipients too, if you want. Cameron?
I want to tell you all that it's too bad that Cremena isn't here because she's really her better half. Funny one. No, Kurt, I just want to thank you for getting up so early and coming to Cincinnati and talking to us today. And I also want to congratulate you because you won a major award for the arts, correct? For this project.
Yes.
You need to tell people that.
That's interesting because I actually thought what I need to tell people is that the hashtag is Cincy Inc. So if you want to see these tattoos come up, that's what you look for. But the Americans for the Arts every year does, I think they're supposed to do the top 25 public artworks in the country, and they don't always get to 25 because they're very particular about it. And the Lexington Tattoo Project was honored with that last year, so that was really fantastic. And what's really incredible is knowing that Lexington Tattoo Project was honored with that, and other cities make it so much bigger. So it's really exciting to see not only what happens in Cincinnati, but then how the country responds to it.
You say Cincy Inc.?
Cincy Inc. Yes.
I'm assuming that all the Cincinnati tattoos have been fulfilled from the poem, or are there still?
Not yet. They certainly haven't been made, and I think there are a few phrases that might still be.
There's just the one background, right?
Okay. Oh, yes.
So how do you become a recipient?
So there's the secret image that's kind of that big background thing that doesn't have anyone for it yet. But I believe Artworks has received more than enough people to be on the waiting list, because they received enough people to get the tattoos, and then they had a waiting list. And I think that mostly all the tattoos that are available have been given away, except for 2 title ones and the background image.
Right.
So there are still some out there, but I don't believe there's a way you can get in line at this point. Yes.
I had a slightly morbid question. Just in that you said being able to show forever, whereas humans are somewhat temporary.
Yeah.
So, especially somewhat, some people live longer. But especially for the one that's the world-related one, I think it's like a super important piece. Like I was kind of imagining, what if somebody found this poem sometime away from now? Like, do you have any plans for how to catalog this thing happening? Because part of it is, it's beautiful that it's temporal.
Right.
But like if somebody got mummified and they found a piece of this puzzle, is there a way to decode the rest of the puzzle? Is my question.
Well, that sounds fantastic. But first I should clarify forever. When I say forever, I mean until I die. Everyone else's forever I don't know about. But so the Love Letter to the World project is ongoing in such a way that people can join at any time, and there will be a website where you can upload it. And when you hit play, it'll automatically play a video of all the tattoos, and it'll randomly select one if there are multiples. So there will be a memory, but that memory is online, which, as we all know, is fragile, right? We think that anything that's online is permanent, but it's only permanent until the next version of operating systems come out, and whatever website we built is non-functional.
I guess that's what I'm getting at. So is there like a long now version of this? Because like we find people 2,000 years ago or 2,000 plus years ago. It's kind of wonderful to think that this would live that long, that somebody else could find this later and see a point in time where we all rallied around something. That's just what I'm wondering. It's like, could there be a time capsule or something that goes into this project that, I don't know if you want it to be there or not, but I think it would be interesting in that somebody else could find this.
Yeah, I think there will be many different ways that that manifests. We haven't talked about a time capsule as such, although it's a fantastic idea. But one thing that I think is really powerful is to think about the ways not only people in Cincinnati, but people in Cincinnati, Lexington, and Boulder, and I didn't mention Detroit, we're also starting one in Detroit as well, can bump into each other 30, 40 years from now. And so part of that, the longevity, is the way it changes when you interact with people. Or if you live in Cincinnati and you know about this project, but then you move to Detroit and you see it, you know that's a big conversation. But that conversation is still limited by the lifespan of people. In Lexington, and this conversation will start to happen in Cincinnati fairly soon, probably as well, people who really wanted to be involved but couldn't be because it's a limited number, ask us questions like what happens when someone dies? Do you then give the tattoo away again to keep the poem alive? But we actually like the idea that the poem, like people, has a lifespan. But your concept of a time capsule is really interesting and something that I will then tell Cremena, and this is how it works. I'll tell Cremena that idea along with what I think is a really fantastic idea on how to deal with it, and she'll say that's stupid. And then we'll go back and forth, and eventually, hopefully, something shakes out. But by all means, and if you have an idea on a way to make it a kind of eternal time capsule, certainly share. A lot of the way these artworks become what they are is because people share ideas. When you have 253 people in Lexington that all have a tattoo as part of an artwork, there's a very different kind of ownership. And the ways that it grows in Lexington and the way it will continue to grow in Cincinnati is largely, after the point of getting the tattoos, fueled by the people who have the tattoos and understand that there's an importance to keeping it alive.
Related to that, maybe public sculpture in one of the city parks, kind of highlighting the project and giving the full poem would be interesting.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised because Artworks is a fantastic public art organization if there is a very public and somewhat permanent, non-flesh related component.
Yeah.
Yes?
You might have already said this, but what's your tattoo?
My tattoo is the wishbone. And I, like Cory, got mine on my leg, which is really good in the summer. But the rest of the year, it's not so good. And, Cremena just takes her sweater off and turns around, but I have the wishbone. And I got the wishbone because Cremena's simple. Hers says deep roots, and she says because I have deep roots in Lexington. I got the wishbone because I grew up with all the strange ways that you can make wishes. Wishbones and eyelashes and throwing pennies and all the different things that you can wish on to make changes and to make the world better. And so from the beginning of this project, I associated this whole project with that, with the idea that potentially, the Lexington Tattoo Project is like a wishbone that we can galvanize community through. Yes?
Just it kind of occurred to me that as each person is sort of explaining why they got their tattoo, there may be a really interesting capture of that further story.
Mm-hmm.
Like the poem in and of itself has its own sort of esoteric, holistic meaning, but then those phrases extrapolated into the further deep meaning by the recipient could have an interesting, expansive outcome.
So that, when both Cremena and I got our first tattoos as part of this project, and though we knew tattoos had stories, we didn't know how personal and how powerful they became. But what you're saying is something we realized quickly. When somebody shared the story of her tattoo, somebody shared the story of her tattoo on the blog, and then everyone else wanted to share it as well. Or no, on Facebook, and everyone else wanted to share it. So we created a blog so everyone could see each other's stories. And then, because people had the same feeling you did, they said it needs to be a book. And we said, we have all this content, we don't have time. But when money became available, time becomes available, right? So suddenly we had all kinds of time. And in that way, this is a time capsule for Lexington. And it's not the same kind of eternal time capsule, because books, except for with the best libraries, don't last long. Maybe I'm just thinking about books at my house, because they prop up tables and stuff. But yeah, the stories are really powerful. And the stories that you will hear individuals in Cincinnati and with this book, and also if you follow through the Artworks website, those blogs will start to be posted. Artworks has developed an amazing questionnaire for people who have the tattoos, who are getting the tattoos, that will kind of encourage them to share their stories. And so those stories become really interesting. One of the phrases in Lexington is "but lost one," and it's about part of the poem where someone's running away with high heels, but she lost one because the heel broke off. But the phrase is "but lost one," and the man who got it to commemorate one of his twin sons who passed away early. And so the ways that people make these words their own are really incredible and often really disconnected from the poem itself, and add a whole different layer, which is a really powerful and moving part of this. Yes. It's at the Artworks website. And it's, I don't know if there's a simple web address to get there, but if you go to the Artworks website and you look for Cincy Inc., you'll be able to navigate to the poem. And
also on the Cincinnati Enquire's website, they ran a special story with printed out.
And actually on the Enquirer's website, there's some video from an event with part of the reading too, so you can hear part of it.
Maybe the title of the poem would be helpful for people. Is there a name of the poem yet?
Yes. 7 hills and a queen to name them. Because you have 7 hills here. Though I can stand almost any place and count more than 7, so I'm sure you all know there's a lot more than 7, but we all, every city has its mythology. Any other questions? Thank you.
Well, thank you, Kurt. Let's give a round of applause.